Among our tribal people in the South Sound, we have a ceremony that's called spirit retrieval. This is an ancient ceremony where our people would take the cedar rope and they would lay it out on the longhouses into the form of a canoe. Certain people would be chosen to step inside the outline of that rope, and they would be the singers, they'd be the prayer warriors, they'd be the ones that would help someone that may have lost their way through the death of a loved one or some other type of loss. They would call together the cedar canoe people, and they would be in this canoe, and they would have the power songs, the prayer songs that they would sing for the people, and everybody would concentrate on that one person. And as the songs were being sung, they would make their way to that person, and then they would help that person and bring them back into the land of reality, to where they could get up in the morning and do the work that they needed to do, and be part of the life again, to be able to laugh, to sing again. Our canoe resurgence that we have here in Washington State is very similar. Our tribal people have been through so much turmoil through generations, and we've been through so many hardships that we were like the ones that were lost. And it's been the cedar canoes that have come to us and that have helped retrieve our spirit, our soul, and our language, our songs, the wanting to be able to play Salau games, or just that time to forget about the Western clock, the 1 through 12, and think about our ancient clock, which was the tidal clock, or the setting and rising of the sun, and of the moon and the stars, and of the tidal flows. Those were all very important to our people.
This is Tulalip Bay here. This is the Stahobe. And we've just saw about 35 or 40 canoes come in. And so I want you to know that we're living in a time of the fulfillment of the prophecies. We've never had a smokehouse on my reservation for 100 years. But to see these canoes coming in the water, we know that someday we're going to have a smokehouse, a big house, which here in the state of Washington was outlawed in 1889. The language of the law, and the governor of the state of Washington at that time said we were heathens, pagans, and savages, and we needed to be civilized, and we needed to be Christianized. And so they come on the reservation right across the water. Brought my dad and his family to this reservation, to where there was a school, a church school, and they made the language that of the Catholic Church. They done away by law with our language, song, dance, and ceremony, and that wasn't changed until August 11, 1978. Public Law 95, 341, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. But like the prophecy said, there will come a time that we'll look at this earth, our mother, look at this Creator, our Father, our Son, and begin to walk like this water once, this Tulalip Bay, this Stahobe.
Our longhouse was burnt down in the late 1800s, I believe, very late 1800s. My dad was born in 1899, and he can remember sitting on the bank, watching the families that would come together and gather where that old longhouse used to be. And there would be, usually someone would spy on them, and they would report on every person that was there, and then they would be punished by the Indian agent.
I think our generation, I always say that right now that are in their 40s and 50s that we're like this missing link. You know, we're the ones that were adopted out, fostered out, given away, taken away. And a lot of people my age have been looking and searching for something. Some people find the sweat lodge, some people found the weepy ceremonies, the sun dances. And now with this resurgence of the canoe journeys, you know, some people take to it and some people don't because they have a fear of water. Or they don't get it. They just think they're out there on a canoe and paddling. People struggle to stay sober, and they struggle to find themselves. And you know, all I have is my story and how it saved me.
Through tribal journeys, we've been able to reclaim our drums and our regalias and our songs and our languages and our gathering, our potlatch culture, our ceremonial culture. Ours is a living culture and a living history. It's not relegated to a separate time. It's not linear. It's a circle. It's like this ring I wear. And I think that that's what's happening here, is that time is coming back full circle, and we're taking those canoes out of the museums and the drums out of the boxes.
After the Treaty of 1854 came the colonization, where we were taught different ways to do things. Also the assimilation into the non-Indian society, our children being taken into boarding schools and taught the English language. A lot of our culture was stripped away, and a lot of it had to do with a misunderstanding of the cultures. There was a clash of the cultures where they didn't understand our language, our way of doing things. For instance, to take cedar to build a cedar canoe, our people would say a prayer to the Creator for the gift of the cedar. And when non-tribal people would see tribal people look like they were praying to the cedar, they thought we were worshiping the cedar like gods. And it was really just a thank you to the Creator for the gift. Many of our ways of doing things with ceremonies has a lot to do of thank you. Our people don't always have the right words to say how grateful we are, and so we have a song that we will sing.
My name is Emmett Oliver.
In 1989, you started the paddle to Seattle.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you remember that.
I remember that.
How many canoes were there during that year?
I couldn't remember.
About
I couldn't remember.
About 10, 13
Yeah,
canoes,
I suppose. Yeah, thereabouts.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
And now you see a lot more canoes. There's almost 86 canoes now.
I wouldn't be surprised.
In 1989 was the year of the Centennial for Washington State, and because it was a maritime centennial, my father thought for the state of Washington one important part was missing, was having the Native Americans involved. And so he went from tribe to tribe, and he solicited them to get their canoe, get their log, find people that knew how to carve the canoe and get a group together. And I believe there were about 13 canoes that came. And one of the best stories about it is that he also thought that wouldn't it be nice if the Canadians, some of the Canadian and Alaska tribes came down with their canoes, and the state of Washington said absolutely not, you could not do that. And he told them to come anyway.
Well, first time I went on a journey, this Tom Huddlebrow set me down with about 10 people, and he went over these rules. He says, when going on a canoe journey, you have to respect your elders. He says you have to participate in what's going on. He said you have to communicate, especially if you have problems or something, because we've got spiritual people and elders and counselors and everybody. You got to talk. He said when the people ask you to get out and dance, he says get out and dance. Don't act like you're afraid or ashamed, defeating the purpose. So what you're being there for. He said help out. He said everybody gets tired. ground crew, everybody gets totally fatigued, so help out. Don't expect people to do nothing for you. Do it for yourself. Plus, do some more for other people. We call that helping out. He went into listen to the skipper at all times. Never talk back to the skipper. Never argue with the skipper. Never tell the skipper what to do. You got to absolutely respect the authority of that skipper. We talked about no sex and romance because your energy gets dissipated in different ways. And canoe, you got to be ready. You got to be alert. You can't be rum-dum in love. Your energy got to be right on that canoe and paying attention at all times. We talked about no violence. That's one of his rules that he talked about. He talked about no baiting and arguing, like provoking conflict. No drugs and alcohol. So that's a hard one. That's a real hard one for our native people sometimes. You don't have to be a perfect person, but this, as long as you try your best to remember these canoe rules, you have this copper ring, and each year we put a different bead on it.
About this time in '98, Connie McLeod came to me and said that there were several longhouse people that wanted to have the ring ceremony. So I started making rings, and I did about 700 rings in 1998. We did ceremonies all the way down to Puget, and I made the rings as we went. And we did this very same thing that we're doing right now, no different. And of course, we didn't plan to have 6,000 people involved in it. We'd only planned to only have a couple hundred people involved, and we'd be doing our little works as we went. So what we wanted to talk about was basically the second rule, which talks about no abuse of anyone else or yourself. So we expanded on rule number 2 of the 10 rules of the canoe. And we're saying no alcohol, no drugs, no violence, no sex during the journey. Tom and I decided that these things would happen 7 generations. The things that we wanted to see that would be perfect in our mind about what our people would be doing was 7 generations down the road. We knew we'd be dead. We would be long gone. We would never see that day, except maybe in spirit. We knew that this was the beginning. We knew that people would fail, that people would be falling all over the place. There would people be dropping out and going away back to that other life. So we knew that it would be far from perfect, so we're not asking perfection when we do this. We're just asking you to join this circle of canoe people and try to do it in a good way, in a good, honest way, by not doing drugs and alcohol, because that's what has killed us. Promise to go by the rule? Okay. Promise to go by the rules? Promise?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I promise.
It's really emotional when you're on the beach and you have never participated in this before and you see all the canoes coming, and it's like seeing a lost loved one coming to visit you. And we've had elders that just stream tears, because they're so happy to see the canoes, and they may have just seen them a few days before, but it's like there it is. It's like seeing our ancestors again, coming again to the shore. So we've had elders that have related to us how their emotions just like become so strong because they're there among everybody else, and it's like better than the Super Bowl game. I mean, just seeing all our people come along the shore in the canoes. And hearing the songs has brought many good memories to our elders that they've tucked memories away. And then when they hear a song, it brings the stories and they share the history that they remember. But the songs kind of help retrieve that memory. Some of them have made major changes in their lives to participate in the journey and have made great sacrifices.
Come in peace. We're continuing on our journey to Mommy 2007 and ask your permission to come ashore to share songs and dances and eat your food.
This year I brought up some urban Indian kids that I work with to be a part of the tradition and the canoe journey, because these are urban Indian kids that are used to like the concrete jungle. They're not used to, you know, spiritual things, and especially a canoe journey, or let alone even camping. It's changed their lives to the point where I brought them to something that they've never experienced, let alone heard of. Because you don't get to watch a movie about a canoe journey. You know, they watch cartoons, they play video games, they listen to rap and hip hop, you know, and they don't talk about spiritual, they don't talk about being connected, they don't quite understand what it's like to live in an Indian native community where, you know, our tents are right here, but there's all these other tents and we all look out for each other. And so when it's time to eat, we all eat. And when it's time to sleep, we all sleep.
What I like most about the journey is that I get to make new friends. I get to meet new people and see the old people that I've already met.
I think that it really gives you discipline being out there on the water. Teaches you to keep going, and you're make it there sooner or later. Gives you a lot of time to think, and I'll be just definitely coming back next year to paddle.
I started pulling when I was 13 years old, so I've been pulling since then. This has been a great experience for me. I come up here every summer to come and see my friends from other tribes, and it's just an awesome experience to be able to unite with people that you don't really know, but you just feel that connection like you've known them for years and years when you've just met them here. It's awesome to be able to bring our culture back and bring everyone together. If you don't know your past, you don't know your future. So to keep something alive like that, to be able to go take down a tree and carve that out. It's not just a tree, there's so much work put into it. It's not carved out by a machine, it's carved out with heart, soul, mind, spirit. So there's so much prayer that goes into that. It took, when my Uncle George carved out that canoe, everybody was a part of that. There's pictures of Joey hugging the canoe before it was even a canoe. It was just a big log.
And just a little guy.
Yeah, little. And so we've all grown up with this, and it's really spiritual to, when they finally put that canoe in the water, the first year that we had it in, everybody was just so ecstatic because it was finally happening. Like, we've been waiting for this for so many years, and it just, to have it brought back and to have our culture to keep it alive. It's awesome. Being on the canoe, when everyone sings, you can hear it echo across the water, so it carries off to other canoes. And we'll hear other canoes singing, and we're like, hey, let's sing a song. And so all of us will get together and we'll sing a song, and it's just powering on the canoe.
When I first started, I didn't know what to expect, but we'd set up camp one night and sleep there, and the next day we'd have to get up early, break down camp, get our canoe on the water, and get from that place to the next place, and then land and set up camp and do the same thing every day. I had no idea when I first started. I didn't know what to expect. It was 3 weeks long of setting up camp, breaking down camp, pulling on the canoe all day. But that's what you can expect. You can expect to do a lot of work. Whether you're on the canoe or off the canoe, it's a lot of work. The canoe journeys, yeah, it's not only about pulling from place to place. It's also about, the time you spend with other tribes, and a lot of people, what they look forward to is, the protocols that we have every night, and watching other people from other places dance, and what they're wearing, because everybody is from somewhere else, and they all have different stuff that they wear depending on where they're from. All the songs are different, and it's real cool to hear.
We want to do a challenge dance, and you all know it is squirrel dance. You're laughing. You want to come down and show us how to do that? No? The words of this song are Spekliat Tis Yayu. Spekliat Tis Yayu. This word is kind of easy. This work is kind of easy. So I know work is what you make out of it. And that's what this is trying to teach you. Work is what you make out of it. So if work is a 4-letter word, turn it into a 3-letter word like fun. Turn it into fun, and then the work goes a little bit easier.
The canoe has brought many gifts to our people and has brought back our culture in many ways. One of them is our language. The language, when people participate in the canoe journey, they want to know how to sing certain songs, and then they want to be able to articulate the words correctly when they sing the songs, so they become very interested in the language, and they understand that among our people there are certain words that we don't have for spiritual meanings, but there are ways that we utilize these words through ceremony. The canoe has also brought us that wanting to know about making regalia and the respect that we should give to regalia, about weaving and working with cedar. It's taught us about certain seasons again. Reintroduced us to this is the time where we'll go gather the cedar, the time that we're going to strip it, and then there will be a certain time that we'll go gather the certain roots or plants for making the dyes. It's taught us about our food, what foods are good for us. In the Squaxin culture, we've had numerous elders that have lived beyond 100. It was a common thing before the introduction of non-native people and their foods that our people would live beyond 100. And a lot of that had to do with the society structure and the foods and the work ethics.
We're beginning to reclaim ourselves, reclaim our history. and it's all within the context of giving and sharing. You know, we give songs, we receive songs, we share songs, and you know, given the fact that some, through no fault of their own, some of our people had lost their culture because it was forced out of them, and now the resurgence of the opportunity for our people to kind of just give themselves to each other, not in money, but with the spiritual sharing of what we're all about. And that's how we're going to survive. And that's how we've survived. And Canoe Journeys is just another forum for our people to be able to be positive and you know, reclaim the history.
This kind of work with the canoes, promoting the drug and alcohol-free community, is probably one of the most powerful instruments that we've had. Making people, I can see in our community alone a number of families that have a generation of children that are going to grow up a lot different than we did. They're going to be proud of who they are.
It's become my way of life, and it's my way of praying and my way of letting go and my spirituality. I've heard songs when I'm on the water. I've seen visions when I'm on the water. I've seen the old ones.
When you look around you today, I want you to look very closely at the people that are walking on the streets and walking through the stores and living next door to you even. I want you to ask yourself this question. Are they living the real life? What is the real life? Is this the real life? And for us to survive as people, as individuals and as communities and as families, for our bloodlines to continue on and for humanity to continue on, we have to continue to live the real life. If we allow ourselves to get distracted by the dramas on television and the everyday hassles of making rent and mortgage payments and being a slave for someone else for a minimum wage or whatever wage, you got to ask yourself, is that real life?
You look at all these young people pulling the canoes. They're the ones that are teaching us how to come back to be the Suquamish that we are, to be the Songhees that we are, because indeed we're experiencing something today that is a miracle. We're living in a time of the fulfillment of the prophecies. And it's a spiritual revolution of today when we can look at the people here and say, I love you, I care for you, and we need each other. When we can come to that understanding, we're going to see the value in human beings that for a lot of years we've learned to hate. And we begin to know that there is hope for our young people, because it's the young people that have been responsible for bringing back this way of our life we call the Canoe Way, the sacred journey.
Our teachings tie us back to the natural resources of the land. And a lot of these teachings come from being involved in the culture and preserving that culture and making sure the culture moves into the next generation. I was encouraging a young mother with her son to turn him around so he can watch the people come in as they were pulling in, and so that he could hear the drumming, and that memory would be put into him so that he would know that he's tribal. We still make sure that in each generation we put into each one of them the memory of who we are as people of the water, as tribal people, canoe people.